All right, if you're a skilled trades pro and you've got your sights set on Ontario, listen up. Some major news just dropped that completely changes the game. So let's break down exactly what happened with the Ontario skilled trades immigration stream, and way more importantly, what you can do about it now.
And yep, there it is, the headline that's causing a whole lot of stress right now. The Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program, the OINP, has hit the brakes and immediately suspended its skilled trades stream. This is a huge, sudden shift, and look, if you were in the middle of this process, I know this is a tough pill to swallow. But stick with me because we're going to get you some clarity here.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll talk about the halt itself. Then, we'll dig into why this decision was made. After that, we'll tackle the big one. What happens if you already applied? Then, we're going to explore some real, practical alternatives. And finally, we'll talk about why it's time to think about a new immigration strategy. All right, so let's get right into it. The shutdown. As of November 14, 2025, the OINP skilled trade stream is closed. This was a go-to pathway for carpenters, electricians, welders, cooks, you name it. And now, it is no longer accepting any new applicants. It's a full stop.
And that, of course, leads to the big question on everyone's mind. Why? Why did this happen so suddenly, with absolutely zero warning? I mean, this wasn't a slow phase-out. It was like flipping a switch. And that usually points to some pretty serious issues under the surface.
So what was going on behind the scenes? Well, the official word is that an internal review by the Ontario government uncovered some problems that were just too big to ignore.
That review found two really critical issues with the program's integrity. First, they saw what they call systematic misrepresentation of qualifications, and second, widespread fraudulent activity. On top of all that, there was another factor. Ontario's overall quota for provincial nominations got reduced for 2025. So, you've got fewer spots to give out and a program that feels high risk. They made a tough call.
So what this all boils down to is that the government basically lost confidence in the system. The problems were so widespread that they felt they couldn't reliably tell who was a genuine qualified applicant and who wasn't. And that really undermines the entire point of the program.
Okay, this is probably the part you've been waiting for. If you've already submitted your application, what on earth happens now? The good news is there is a clear process, even if it's a disappointing one.
It's a two-step process, and it's pretty straightforward. First, if your application was pending, it's going to be returned. They will not be processing it. Second, and this is really important, you will get a full refund for your application fee. So while this path is closed, at least you won't be out of pocket for the application you sent in.
All right, let's pivot, because this is the most important part of our chat today. One door has slammed shut, but that does not mean it's the end of the road. Let's look at the other pathways that are still very much open for skilled trades professionals.
First up, and this is your most direct alternative, is the federal entry system. Specifically, we're talking about the category-based draws for trade occupations. The reality is, if you are eligible for the Ontario stream, you have a really good shot at being eligible for this one too.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Just look at the scores. The Comprehensive Ranking System, or CRS score, needed in a recent trade-specific draw was only 505. Now compare that to a general draw for the Canadian Experience class where you needed a score of 533. That 28-point difference is massive. It gives you, as a trades professional, a huge leg up.
So what do you need for this federal stream? The big thing is at least 6 months of experience in a qualifying trade within the last 3 years. But here's the one thing you really need to keep in mind. These trade-specific draws don't happen all that often. There was only one this year, way back in August. So while this is a fantastic option, it's one that might require a bit of patience.
Okay, option number 2. Don't give up on Ontario just yet. You can look at the other streams that are still available under the OINP. In fact, the government itself is pointing applicants in this direction.
So this table kind of breaks down your options. On the left, you've got streams that link up with your Federal Express entry profile, like human capital priorities. And on the right, you have Ontario's own base streams, which often rely on having a job offer. Which one is right for you? Well, that's going to depend entirely on your specific profile and situation.
And that brings us to option number 3. Think bigger than just Ontario. Don't box yourself in. Pretty much every province in Canada has its own provincial nominee program, or PNP, and a lot of them are desperate for skilled trades workers, often with lower score requirements than what Ontario is looking for.
So let's just zoom out for a second and look at the big picture.
This decision in Ontario isn't just some random, isolated event. It's actually a signal of a much broader trend that's happening right across Canadian immigration.
And this quote really gets to the heart of the matter. The government's action here wasn't just about trying to catch a few people breaking the rules. It was basically an admission that the program itself was flawed, that its very design made it easy to abuse. So, especially with fewer nomination spots to hand out, they decided to just scrap it instead of trying to patch up a broken system.
And that all points to our final and maybe most important takeaway from all this. Canada is moving towards smarter, more sophisticated, and tougher immigration rules. The days of finding one simple, easy path are kind of fading away. Having a strategic, well-researched approach is no longer just a good idea, it's absolutely essential.
So I'll leave you with this to chew on. Yeah, this news is a setback, there's no doubt about it. But it's also a chance to take a step back and reevaluate. It's a moment to shift from having a single plan to building a multi-pronged strategy. So the real question is your immigration strategy ready for a redesign?